Alright, welcome back everyone. Mark Sajan here again, and we will follow with the animation tutorial and the basics and fundamentals. This time we will create a ball rig that helps us to animate a little bit better details, especially the squash and stretch, and also orientation and rolling while the ball is stretched. This rig is originated from LollypopMan's rig. The rigging process is somewhat similar. The difference is the speed and the detail to make it more digestible for beginners. So even if it's a fairly complex thing to start out with, you will get a better understanding on rigging in general. Alright, so here we go. The cube is there. Shift A and M and U as a UV sphere, and function key 9 will allow me to change some of the things. And 0.1 meter will be fair enough in size, and of course we want to zoom in, and just to spice up things we have to have and create a few things as okay, there we are. It's just a little bit slow, so some few materials that helps us to recognize the rotation and the spinning of the ball. So this is the main color. I will set it to about a yellowish tone, and of course it's not visible, so we have to go in and material preview. So now it's there. Go in edit mode, number 3 to face mode, Alt Z to make it see-through, and number 1 to go to the front, and selecting these guys and create a new slot, create a new material that will be ball stripes, and of course a different color, and this will be my purple. And we are assigning this, and I will assign another line here, assign, just to make it a little bit more fun. Okay, and there we go, and assign. Okay, that's it, that's the ball. Let me leave this mode and right click and shade smooth. Of course we have to select it, otherwise it will not work. So there's the ball, and if you made something on the go, scale, anything, the ball right now sits in a dead center, so we can press Ctrl A and all transforms, everything applied. So now this is a fresh start. Okay, now alright, this is reset, but in reality usually we have a contact point that's on the floor, and this is not ideal. The center of the ball should be above the floor, and of course the contact point should be placed somewhere here at the bottom. So if we are going to the front viewport, we can drag and press G and on y-axis. I will lift this up. Now because we have a simple metric standard default scene, and this is 0.1 meters, I can tell by value that how much I have to lift this up. So in the z-axis that's 0.1 meters, so we don't have to guess this, it is already there. Okay, so that's it. Now, but because we have changed, if we press Alt G, it will reset and recenter the ball directly to the center. Let me show that, because it remembers the original position. So let me undo this and Ctrl A and choose location to deltas. So look at this value, Ctrl A, location to deltas, and that will recognize this new position of the ball as the origin position. So right now we have basically two data. That will be the contact point area, the origin itself, and the center of the ball. That's great. Now it starts working on the bones. Before I do that, just make things tidy. Function key here in the outliner, and that will be ball and mesh. Alright, so this is definitely a ball and mesh. Okay, now to move forward, we'll need bones. Now you can create it in many ways, but we will create an armature. And the idea behind using one single armature, including a lot of bones there, that is, we have only one container, one main capsule that contains all the bones. And this is helping a lot in animation and helping a lot to keep things organized and reduce some memory usage and other things as well. Okay, so to create the armature, Shift A and S, and that will create a single bone. Now, at the moment when you are creating a bone, when the bone is selected, we have different modes. So let me use Control Tab and show this. So we are in pose mode, or we have object mode and other things as well. So let me go to perspective. Here's the armature, and we can actually go to object mode. So here we have edit mode as well. All right, so now I'm in edit mode and I'm pressing Control Tab, and we can switch between object mode, edit mode, and pose mode. Now this is important whenever you are adjusting and linking bones and parenting. You are using this. When you are animating the thing, then you are in pose mode, and if you see the color is changing up, so that's fairly important. All right, so anytime if you don't use the Control Tab, you can walk up here and use edit mode. But once you're in edit mode, by pressing the tab, Control Tab is working, and it will offer this pie menu to the whole thing. Okay, we need a first bone, and that will be the root bone. So let me go to the front viewport and using S and scale it down. Now here's how it scales. The scale by default here is happening with the, okay, just let me move it away. So here's this median point, which one is the center, basically the whole stuff. Now we want to use the individual origins in this case, and if I'm using S, now the origin of this bone is placed here. Okay, so that's pretty neat. Now here we are, and let me stop for a second here and use something that could be really helpful. So it's not there yet, it's not properly sized yet. We can go into viewport display, selecting the stickman, viewport display, and we have various options to deal with this. Now here's one thing that's really important. This is called in front, and the other thing I will use that helps us to work with this is I will turn on names. So right now this guy is called bone, and to rename this, and be careful, this is what you have to digest as an idea. We have an armature, and within armature there is the armature itself, and it contains the bone, and that's called bone. All right, so that's where we are, and as you see, we are in a stickman figure, and it says armature. This is the general setting for the stuff, and here we go. We have the individual bone properties, and then there's a name, and that name is actually the way it's called. Now this will be called root, or you can call it position, but right now it will be root. Let me hit enter, and it updates in the viewport, and this is great. Okay, what else? We want to make it fit to the whole thing, and you can make it fit by using the Shift S and using the cursor and navigate with the cursor, but we have snaps, and the snaps are working like a charm. Now, but before we do the snap thing, first of all, Shift Tab will turn on snap by default. There's another hotkey, I'm not using it too much, but here it is. Ctrl Shift and Tab as opens up the snap dialog, so we can switch directly here to vertex and closest and move, and that's it. And of course you can reach it from here. So this is Ctrl Shift and Tab. That's the hotkey for this. Now the reason we did this, we are still in edit mode. We are selecting the end tip of the bone. Okay, I'm coming from out of software, so this is why I will call it a tip, but in Blender it's called in different ways. So there's the root of the bone, and here's the link of the bone, and here's the tip of the bone, the end of the bone. And that end could be positioned individually. So if I'm pressing G, it will just move away. Now, what we have to take care of, let me turn on the wireframe, and I'm using Alt-E because I have an assigned hotkey for this. This one is working only in this situation. But basically, here we go. Yeah, that's the wireframe. If you turn this on, you will see the wireframe, and you can turn this on and off. And right when you press G, and because snap is active, it's going there. Now, if you don't have snap active, you can press G, and if you're holding down Control, it will temporarily activate the snap functions. And if you set it to vertex, it will just do fine. Okay, there we are. This is the root bone. Now, what's next? We need to create multiple bones, but these bones will be generated for different purposes. This one is the main thing for moving the whole stuff, and this is the reason why it originates from the floor, because the main idea is to move the contact point of this whole thing, and that is coming from that location. Now, to navigate with the bones and somewhat organize them. We can have layers. Now, here's the layer selection. If you want to place this guy somewhere, let me click on it. We are in edit mode. I'm click on it and I'm using M. And here's the change bone layers. And I will put this to the bottom layer now. And this is just hiding. The reason it's hiding because the layers in here, this selection, this is the selected layer. And here, this dot indicates that we have a bone that is selected and existing on this layer. And because it's not blue, that's not showing up. Okay, but if I'm clicking on it, yeah, it's showing up. All right, so let me go back to this layer. And we need another set of bones. This will be very similar as start, and this will be a core that allows us to stretch this ball. All right, so one bone is created, the root bone for moving the ball. There will be another set that will be the stretch, and that will be used to stretch the ball. There will be another set, that's the single bone basically, that helps us to rotate the thing around. And there is another bone that will be the center of the whole thing. All right, so and when we have this, basically we are helping us to move and manipulate the channels easier. Okay, so there we are. Here's this new layer, and I'm in edit mode, and the armature is active. The bone, the previous bone, is not visible. What I'm using, I'm pressing Shift A, and it will just drop in a new bone. And because if you have named the root already, it will be easier to recognize that, okay, we have a new bone there, a new player. The process is the same. I'm pressing number 1, go to the front viewport, selecting the bone itself, make sure that this is set to individual origins, and using scale and scale it down, and going to perspective, and pressing, selecting the very end, pressing G and holding Control and C for the snap, look out for the snap, and now the snap is done. Let me go back to the front viewport. And don't forget, you can always press number 1 on the keypad, or you can rotate and use Alt key to snap into views. Numpad is, depending on your workflow, you will find the numpad is easier, or the snapping with the Alt key. But this is how it works. And to move on, we need another 2 bones. The reason we are needed those 2 bones is because this bone will be like a rubber band, and that rubber band needs to be anchored to some kind of handles, and those handles will be selected and we can animate those. And inside of those handles, this elastic bone will naturally do its job, and it will just squash and stretch the ball itself. All right, so that's the purpose. Now, what does it mean? We have to create additional bones. It's not Shift A anymore because it's kind of an initial starting bone. Selecting the end, I'm pressing E, dragging out and pressing Z to lock it in this position. And it's not that big of a bone. I will place it here and just snap. And here's another thing, and E, and stretch it out, and press Z to make sure it's locking and somewhat close to the middle. Okay, there we are. So now we have bone 1, bone, and bone 2. Which one is just means nothing. Okay, so how to name these guys? Let me select first this guy, and again, this is the general armature, the stickman. Here we have the layers, but we have the individual settings. For example, the name, you can also name it here, and the individual bone properties. So this is bone. I will name it to MCH stretch. This is the MCH. This prefix helps the software to the Blender to recognize that this is not a bone that should be keyed. This is for mechanics. What we want to actually animate is the handles and not this one. This makes the ball stretchy, but it's not there for animation. Okay, so there we are. This is stretch. Now here's the other thing. This will be stretch top, and this will be at the bottom here, stretch and bottom. Okay, just make it short. And there we are. Okay, so going back to the stick figure, this is where we see the layers again. Now this is looking great, and I want to start a new thing. So if I'm switching to here, this is the root, This is one layer, we have the root there. This is the other layer, we have these stretchy things there. We need another layer to create the rotation bone. This will be fairly easy. And the center bone, and we are good to go. We have to link and tie them up. Okay, so here's this new layer. Nothing is there, and I need new bone to select it, but that will be the center of rotation. Now, of course, this bone, for example, this is not really good for rotating the bowl itself. Why? Because the center of rotation is placed in the middle, in the bottom at the contact point. So this is not really, it's a kind of a rocking movement and not really a rotating movement. So this is why we have to create a new bone. Don't be scared about this, because these will be linked and it's fairly easy to manage. You just have to understand we are working on separate layers and other parts. All right. Armature selected, so if I press Shift A, it will just naturally generate a new bone. But hey, is it a position? No, it's not really. So let me undo this. And before making the armature changes, I will leave edit mode, go to object mode. You can also go here or Control Tab and left. That will bring this back. And select the 3D sphere. And the 3D sphere selection is important because we have this 3D cursor. Now I'm pressing Shift S to the 3D cursor menu, pie menu, and this is cursor to selected. So we have an existing feature and we want to snap to that existing feature, so cursor to selected. And then I will go back and select armature, then press Tab to go in edit mode. Of course, we don't see anything because, again, we are on a layer where nothing is existing yet. And going to the front viewport, number 1, Shift A, it's generating a new bone, and boom, because, the creation of something is happening at the 3D cursor, it's right now in the dead center of this little sphere. And of course, we are selecting this and using S to scale it down. And of course, as the normal way, let me select the tip of this, zoom onto this tip, and press G, and holding down Control to snap to the vertex. Alright, so this is why it's so good to use a UV sphere for first. You can use different shapes, but you can also check this value, this radius value. This is the radius of the whole thing, the bowl itself. But here's the z-axis value for the tail. Again, this is called, in Blender, it's called tail. I'm coming from other softwares where it's called tip. But basically, it's very much the same concept. So you can add the Z height for the overall thing if you're not secure, not sure what to do, or don't want to use a snap. This is what you can do as well. Okay, so there we are. Rotation bone is great, and of course we have to rename it. Now we can rename it here. Function key 2. If we are allowed, yes, bone, and that would be rotation. There's it. Okay, so rotation is perfect. All right, so now we have a couple layers. What else do we need? We need a centering bone as well, and we also need something else. Now, before we do the centering, actually, it's easier if we have all the stuff, and then we are going forward. So this is the 4th layer. This one's empty. And the center bone, that would be a bit larger. So the center is already placed here. This one is good. It's very similar to the rotation bone. So Shift I, here's the bone, front viewport, selecting the thing, using scale, and I'm just scaling it down. It's not that big of a scale. It's protruding a bit to differentiate. And again, the naming. And that will be center. Okay, well, there we are. Now we have all the ingredients that we have to work with. Now, what to do and how to deal with the whole stuff. If you haven't tested, it's a good idea to test. Let me just hide and choose a layer with which one is empty, so no bone is visible. I can leave edit mode and select the bowl itself, and if I'm pressing G and pressing Alt G, it resets. If I'm start rotating, double R is the trackball rotation, and I'm pressing Alt R, it resets, which one's great. And if I'm pressing scale and Alt S, it resets. So the ball itself is clean and works fine, because once we bind the bone and the mesh, then it could be a little bit problematic if we have some kind of a transformation off. Okay, so there we are, and it's time to work with the bones. So let me go to Armature, and of course we are not in object mode, we are in edit mode, and the bone we need is the rotation first. So here is the thing, we have multiple bones and not all of them visible, but actually if we wish we can make them visible, but it's just much easier. If I'm holding down Shift key, I can make visible all the bones in there. Now I will use just the rotation to make it a little bit easier. So what the task is, it's now visible, I'm in object mode, and select the ball, and then holding down the Shift key and click on the rotation bone. Now we have two objects selected. With this one is a little bit brighter orange, that means that's the shift selected, that's the last in the selection chain. And now I'm going back to pose mode, and this is crucial. So not object mode. By pressing tab you are just in edit mode, but control tab and to the bottom, and I'm pose mode and selecting the bone itself. Okay, don't forget that this is just single bone that's visible, but in the armature this is a bag of bones. We have way more things. Okay, so this is why you have to highlight the actual bone you want to build a connection with the sphere. And I'm using Control P, and that brings a set parent. Now we can use this deform and other things, but here this is a natural, there's no skinning involved here. This is just basically a copy position, copy rotation, copy stretch. So what the bone does, the ball will do the same thing, and that's it. So we are sticking to bone, and what happens, and it's time to test again, if I'm pressing, we are in pose mode, so we can easily manipulate the whole thing. Double R and tracks, and now it rotates with the ball. Okay, so if I press Alt R, now the bone is reset, which one is great. Okay, what's next? The next thing is that we want to make a connection with the stretchy stuff. So here's the stretchy stuff, and the stretchy stuff will influence this particular thing. Now, what to do? Here it is. So here's the stretchy set, and also holding down Shift key, and now we have the rotation. So, and I'm going back to edit mode. All right, so the center bone, I'm sorry, it's hard to select, but I will do it. So this rotation bone selected, the stretch bone selected. I'm holding down Shift key, and this is how the stretch is selected, and I'm holding Control P. And please note that when you are in edit mode, this parenting window is different. And whenever you see or follow a tutorial, this helps to understand, okay, which mode you are in. But basically, when you are linking bones, you are in edit mode. But when you are binding a mesh to a bone, that's happening in pose mode. Okay, so keep offset. And what it does when I'm moving this bone in pose mode, when I'm moving this bone, it will move the other bones as well, namely the rotation and, let me press escape, and the stretch top. Okay, it's great. So what does it mean? If I'm scaling this bone, it will scale the rotation bone itself because there's a link connection, and we still can rotate the ball itself. All right, because again, stretch is coming from this bone, but the rotation is coming from this bone. So we separated basically the channels. It's not a single object anymore. One is designed to rotate, the other is designed to stretch the thing. Okay, but how this stretch is working? Because if I'm selecting the top and press G, it's basically just, this is what it does. It's just rotating around. This is a standard bone chain link. So this is good for fingers, good for arms, whatever, good for a spline. but it's not really good here. So what we have to do is, in edit mode, select the top bone, select the bottom bone, and tear them off. Okay, so the bottom bone is not that big of a deal because it's already pointing outwards. It's not really a part of the chain, it's just an additional extra bone. But this one is part of the chain, and I'm using Alt P. And the two things to remember: we have to disconnect this bone now and this bone. These are disconnected from the stretchy bone. Let me turn off the rotation now. We don't want to see that. So these two are disconnected, but the parent of this bone is still this main one. So let me go select that and go to the individual bone properties, and we have relations, and it says parent is MTH. And we want to break that as well. So let me select, hold on Shift key again, and hold this one as well. No, this one's not. And Alt P and clear parent. Can you see this is still active? So I can select that, clear parent. And what happens when I'm selecting this top bone, this parent label is gone. So I'm free to move. If I'm testing it in pose mode and I move it away, this works just fine. So what we have to do is somehow rebuild the connection. Now, how to do it? So here's the bone selected, and selecting this guy, and Ctrl Shift and C will bring us a constraint panel. So we are in pose mode, and we are assigning a connection, and that connection will be a stretch 2. Okay, so stretch 2. So this was the first selected. This is the other that's selected. So now on, if I'm selecting this in pose mode and I'm pressing G and move it away, this is what happens. And because this stretching is coming through a set, let me just turn back on the stick figure, and turn on the layer. We have rotation, and if I'm selecting rotation and start rotate, I can still rotate, and this whole stretch is maintained. Okay, so that's the goal of it. Let me undo this and go back in position. And there we are. Now, one thing that we still have to deal with is if I'm pressing G, this bone is just floating around. But this bone has to move this main thing. So what is the way it's happening? It's not a stretch, dude. It's basically just a linking thing. So this bone, and I'm going back to edit mode because it's a linking. So this one is selected. I'm holding down Shift key, selecting this one because that will be the parent. That's the last in the selection chain. And I'm pressing Ctrl P and keep offset. And to test it, go back to pose mode, selecting this little bone here and pressing G, and then move away. And as you see, I can stretch from the bottom up, or I can stretch the top one and press G and just move it away. And there we go. All right, so here we are. Now, okay, we have rotation, we have the scale, but we still have to move the whole thing together, and we still have to maintain the center of this thing. So we need to turn on additional bones. Now, before I do that, we have this bone layer system, and something maybe worth considering. This bone is actually not in the game regarding to animation. It's we will animate the handles. So let me select this bone and hit on M and put it on a new layer. Okay, so this will be the layer, and now it's visible. It's not there. And what I want to do is rotation. I don't need that yet, but we have a center bone and we have a the handles. Okay, so what to do? The two little things, and shift click on, let me go to edit mode, and this little guy, these are linked. So again, what I did is the two handles selected first, and then shift selected the center bone, and I'm using Ctrl P. And don't forget, because we are in edit mode, it will bring you the keep offset dialog. Okay, and this chain is appearing. So that is the connection line. And this is the relationship line. If you wish, you can turn it off. Sometimes it's a little bit weird to have that. You will see for yourself. There we are. Okay, so what does it mean? We have now this whole thing, and if I'm selecting this center and move it away, it will, of course, we have to be in pose mode. It will move the whole thing, and then you can select individually the handles and stretch them as you wish. Okay, now what else? We have to turn on a root bone, and you know, this is the main difference. Why do we have a root bone and why do we have a center bone? So if you ask that question, the center bone is coming from the dead center of the ball. This is why it can rotate the ball around itself. And this bone is starting from the floor contact, and that means you can mark where the ball will land. All right, so it's moving from the 3D space, and that is moving around itself. This is why we have two bones. And to connect those bones, we have to make them first visible both. And the center bone selected first, and the parent, the root bone, that will be the biggest in the... All right, let me go to edit mode and select this one. And yeah, holding down Shift key and this one. And Control P and keep offset. And there we go. So basically, this is the rig. And let us test it. But before testing it, let me hold down Shift key and show everything. We can also go in here and open up this whole line of elements. So we have stretch top, we have stretch bottom, we have rotation, we have center and roots. So these are the party animals here. Okay, so let me just quickly save this guy and go up and up and okay, so we just video rig. Okay, so save as. Perfect. All right, so there we are. And just to test it, we are going to pose mode. And here's the root bone selected, and this is armature root selected. So if I press G, it's moving away. There we are. If I'm selecting the center bone, that and R, double R, that is rotating the whole thing. Can you see how it rotates? If I'm selecting the top bone, and with G, I can stretch it. And if I'm selecting the rotational bone and double R, this is actually rotating ball itself. Okay, so the center is basically it's a direction manipulation. Okay, so it's direct, it's manipulating the whole direction stuff. All right, let me undo this. And if you want to experiment a little bit more, you can do so if the whole thing is saved. So to make it a bit more tidy, we have to have some kind of handles to easily select, because these bones are fairly overlapping and it's hard to tell which one's which. And of course, it's not really that friendly and suitable. So starting with the easy parts, maybe, yep, the stretch and bottom. I will go to an object mode and create Shift A and create a mesh. And that will be a cube, and function key 9. This cube should be small, like 1 centimeter, so 0.02 maybe. Let me see that, and G and Z, and lift this up. Okay, so that's fairly nice. I think it's we can grab this, working fine. And what else? We need to select the bone and go to edit mode and pose mode. So in pose mode, I will check the bone properties and see myself the viewport display, and the viewport display has this custom shape. So here's this bone selected. We have the custom shape option for that particular bone, and in pose mode, and we can pick the cube. So let me pick the cube. And what it does, it places that cube in a kind of a small manner. Okay, it's there. Let me turn off this scale to bone length. Okay, and then it is working pretty fine. Now it's right away, it's in the ball basically, and that's it. If you wish, you can change, for example, the scaling or change translation. Be careful, you know, use the shift key to slow down the movement, but I'm happy with this because the placement is just right in the middle. If you want to adjust this and fine-tune it later on, you can do so by modifying the original mesh. Okay, I don't want to go into details. We will use fairly simple stuff, but that's how you do it. So this is a cube, and let me rename it function key 2 to stretch widget. Widget, and I will use it in another place as well. So here we are. This is another mode. We are still in pose mode, custom object, and clicking on the same object, it will be there. And again, it will be very small. Skin to ball length is turned off. So now we have the very similar shape used. Okay, this one looks good. This is not turned wireframe, but if you wish, you can turn it on wireframe. It's kind of a ghosting stuff, which one I do like at this situation. All right. Or actually, let me go to wire and just use it that, because we can add colors later on. Okay, because we don't want to see this all the time, we have this selected, and pressing M will allow us to create a new collection, and that will be collection of widgets. And hitting OK, fine. So now the widget, where is the widgets collection? Oh, we have Armature. No, I don't want to go back with this. So Armature is there, but widget is there. And let me turn off the visibility so it's not there anymore. There we are. Okay, so that was the first thing. And again, go back to stick figure. We can manipulate the layers. What we want to do is the rotation, for example. Okay, now how to do the rotation. Let me create a circle for that. Shift A, and okay, let me go back to object mode, Shift A, and mesh and circle. And of course, it's way too big. Let me just use function key 9 and reduce the overall size. This one is looking great. Select this item and rotate and control. Don't forget my hotkey is spacebar for the toolbar. Shift space is the default hotkey for that. Okay, there we are. This will be good. Let me go into edit mode by pressing tab. Control 3 is the right viewport. Numpad 3 is the left. Number 3 is the right, and Control 3 is the left, I guess. Yeah. Okay, we see it there. And in edit mode, I will select points. This point, maybe this one, and this one. So just create 3 arrows. Let me hit delete the vertices and select this point and E and move it, and this point again, E and move it. So just indicating that we are dealing with rotation. So again, this is nothing new. This is basically the slowdown version of LollypopMan's video, but somewhat greater details or slowdown version. Okay, that's it. Now let me leave the object mode, and here is rotation. We are going to edit mode and pose mode, and there in the individual bone properties, look for not relations but viewport display, and click on custom object. So selecting this guy, and now it's appearing there, and we can turn off scale bone length, and that looks nice. And of course the orientation is off compared to what we wanted. So in the front viewport, this is how it looks, but it's not really, the front viewport is where it directs, where it travels to. So I'm going to perspective and using the rotation, not this one, yeah. So this one's set to 0, and this one's set to 90 or minus 90, and that is working pretty well. Okay, so there we are. And of course, we want to keep this armature as rotation widget. I'm sorry, this circle as a rotation widget, And there we go, and we want to include this in the widget layers, and that's it for now. Okay, we are done. We're going back again to bone properties, changing the visibility. So we have the center. The center should be fairly simple, and of course the the root should be fairly simple. So I will use a circle for these. Again, let me go back to object mode, Shift A, and mesh and create a circle, and that will be the because right away still the center is presented there, so this is why it's created. The 3D cursor is located in the middle, so this is why it's created. This would be great for the centering curve. Now, but before I do that, I will reduce the number of vertices a little bit lower, let me say 12, and that way it's a little bit jagged, so the silhouette is not that super smooth, and it's easier to recognize if it rotates and moves in the 3D space. You can add some handles, or you can make a few tricks here and there if you wish. Basically, we can go to edit mode and go to top viewport and extrude towards the z-axis. I'm sorry, y-axis in here. So extrude and y-axis, and extrude and x-axis to pull out. So just a little bit of an indicator. Extrude and left x-axis. There we go, and leave edit mode. So now we have those little handles. Okay, there we go. Here's the bone itself, and again, pose mode. So tap to enter edit mode and pose mode, and look for the individual bone properties and viewport display and custom shape. This is a little bit of a, not bug, but something that happened at my place. So custom shape, if you click on first, it will just close up. Then you have to go in and let me select this bone. Okay, this bone, and because it remembers the previous one, rotation widget, because that was selected. Be careful, selection is really important, otherwise you just change up things. Custom object, there's nothing there yet. Let me click on here, and again, same thing happening. Scale to bone length and rotate in this value 90 degrees on the x-axis, and boom, there we are. And of course, we can select a circle and tell this to center, rename it to center widget. There we are, and turn off the visibility of center widget, or not turning off, just by placing the widget layer, it will be automatically hidden. Okay, so there we are. What else? We need a root. Okay, so but before we are doing the root, let me leave pose mode, go to object mode, and press Shift C to reset the center. And what it does, let me go in here and select only these guys. So now the center, the 3D cursor is placed in the middle. So if I'm pressing Shift A and M and C, that will, Shift A, M and R, Shift A, M and R is the circle. So there we are now, and function key 9. If I want to increase, but I don't really want to increase this whole thing. That's fine for now. Maybe the radius should be a little bit smaller because it's just marking the center of the whole thing. Okay, and to accurately mark the center, you can do many things. What I will do is just go into edit mode, isolate the thing by the numpad backslash, and go to top viewport and select this point and extrude it, and extrude through here, and maybe snap, because we still have the snap enabled. So this snap is set to vertex, and when I'm holding down control, it allows me to snap to an existing vertex. So E, extrude, and I'm holding down control and move my cursor there. So now we have kind of a crosshair thing. If we move it away, this is how it looks. All right. So this is a great help to identify where the exact position of this whole thing is. Let me leave isolation mode and select, of course, we want to make sure that the actual part is visible. So I have to select at least one item, go to edit mode and go to, and as you see in edit mode, you will see the bone, and in the pose mode, you will see the controller. Okay. And the same thing is happening. So whenever you are in edit mode, you will see the bone itself, which one is, could be actually handy. Okay, stickman figure and show the root. Here's the root. Select the root and go to the individual bone properties, custom object, and picking this little guy here. And again, it's scale to bone length and the 90 degrees rotation, which will be fine. And of course, it's not just a circle, it is a circle like root and widgets, and should be placed in the widgets section. And the reason we keep these, so let me turn this back on, and here's the root widget, for example. And if I want to go to edit mode, I can select this guy. We are in the armature now, so we have to leave first and go to object mode. And in object mode, enable to select the root widget and then press to edit mode. Then if I select just a point and press G, it will update on the other on the bone copied version of it as well. All right, it could be a little bit frustrating because the orientation and the axis is a little bit different. I don't want to go into that too much. There's plenty of tutorials you can see or how these are relating. But this is why we had to manipulate the transformation of the widget itself. Okay. If you want to create more exciting and more fancy widgets, you have to look into this. But basically, that's the purpose of keeping the widgets at hand. Okay, well, let me turn on the visibility of all the necessary things. We are in object mode. Let me select the widget itself and be able to go to edit mode and pose mode, of course, and go to and turn on the layers. So everything is visible. We don't need the names now. It's not that important anymore, but we definitely want to have some kind of a color coding, okay, because these are just black. So to do that, I will use bone groups, and let me just move it back a bit if we can. Okay, so here it is, these two, and create a new bone group, and that will be yellow. We are just yellow. These are the end caps, or it's not the best if it's yellow, but I will keep this as it is now, and assigning these to the selection, and we are changing the color code to yellow. So now these are actually yellow, and we have multiple colors because it's selection and active, not active, whatever. So there you go, and here's the rotation, and that will be maybe blue. Okay, so just clicking new group, double click blue, and color scheme set to blue, and this was already assigned. Okay, so that's blue, that may be red, and green the other. Okay, so this may be red, process is the same, red, assign, and click on red color. Okay, this is the root, so that will be green. There we go, selecting the color scheme, assign. So there we are now. And if we are in edit mode or object mode, excuse me, there we are. So everything is there. If we are moving to pose mode, we can select these guys and start working with them and animate with them. All right, that's it. A few things need to be done. That the rotation type and the locks could be used, because right now everything moves all the way, but some things are used to rotate only or scale only or do things that are somewhat restricted. So to do so, we are in pose mode. So what does it mean? When we are selecting this guy, only the mesh, only the armature, only the controllers are selected. what we can animate in post mode, and the body itself is not. Okay, so that's not really there. And if you see that, we have armature, and if we are going back to object mode, then we can select the other parts as well. All right, so just be careful. Go to select an item, select the bone item, the armature itself, control press tab to edit mode, and control tab and switch it to pose mode, and selecting all of these guys, and go to, I'm using Alt key and clicking on this and using X, Y, Z order. So this changes the coordinates system for everything, for all the things, but Alt key is pressed when I'm switching, okay, from quaternion. And there we are. Now what about the locks? So this one is, as it says, it's rotation, so we don't need to move it or scale it. I'm holding down the left mouse key and just moving over. Okay, it's just moving the mouse, and whenever I'm hovering over an area and holding the left mouse, it will just turn on. So it's pretty fast to deal with that. These guys, these are not rotate at all, not scale at all, and the location is, let me just press the space bar and T, and this is basically, if we look for the local axis, this is the y-axis, this is the x-axis, and this is the z-axis. And it's important to see the local. The global shows different. Okay, so keep that in mind. We are in local mode. So this is the reason why you have to lock x-axis, left, right, and back and forth. That's the z. So these are locked, but y-axis is there. So when I start moving, this is what happens, and I can't move in any other direction. And this is why it is showing only that axis, right? So let me press Alt G, it will reset the whole thing, which one is great. Same thing happening at the bottom, and again, local still on, and we have no rotation at all, no scale at all, and I guess it will be Y as well. So if we start to move this thing around with G, this is what it does. So that's perfect, and Alt G to reset the whole thing. All right, so these are done, rotation done. Stretch handle done. This one will move and scale, whatever. I don't think scale is needed. If we scale this up, almost the whole system is scaling, so I don't think it's necessary to scale this one. If you wish, you can scale with the root, and that will generally scale the whole thing if you need to fit in the different scene, and that is fine. So let me undo this. And there we are. Okay, that's it. Maybe another undo. That was just okay. Stretches, everything is fine. Alt G, that's perfect. Okay, and Alt S, don't need it because scale is there. All right, that's it. So that's how it works. This is the bowl rig. And before animation, what we will do is we will adjust the keying type. And because we have locks involved, the keying is going from the active key set. Could be, just walk down, it's the very bottom, the whole corrector, and selected bones only. So those will help us with the auto key process. All right, so the next part, how this auto key process is working. Alright, it's time to test it in animation. So what we'll do, this ball will jump from one point to another. We will try to make it interesting and exciting, and we will see what's going on. Okay, so there we are. Let me zoom out a little bit, and we need a couple platforms. So Shift I, and let me go back to object mode, Shift I, and mesh and cylinder. So this will be a cylinder starting from here. Maybe depth is fairly good, it's 2 meters. This is a little bit high, but the radius is smaller, sorry, and this should be 64. And right click and shade smooth, and move it, maybe move it up and that will be about 1 meters because it's 2 meters in height. Okay, and we have the armature. So here we are. We are in pose mode. So selecting the armature, and we are in pose mode, and select the root, and I will grab the root, and that will make us happy and lift this up to 2 meters on y-axis, and actually just move it a little bit aside. And I'm not there animating yet, but it is just simply that thing. Okay, so this let me apply. Let me look at the in object mode. Let me select this guy and look for normals and auto smooth, because it's a little bit odd to see that without auto smooth this is blending, and it's so hard to tell, okay, where's the edge of the whole thing. So we are in object mode, the element is selected, and in the object data properties we have normals and auto smooth is turned on. This means these are still smooth, but these are not smooth all together. Okay, so there we are, and we can make a copy of this. So Shift E, excuse me, selecting this one, and maybe the center of this whole thing should be somewhere else. It is fairly hard to manipulate it this way. So to do it, go to View and Tool and Origins, or you can use the hotkey. This is Control and comma, so Control and dot, and that is turning on Origins. So that's the hotkey, and I can press Shift S and cursor, selection to cursor. So it will snap it down to the origin, because that's where the 3D cursor is. So Control and comma, and I can turn off the origins there. And Shift E, move this way on the y-axis, and that will be a little bit of a platform. So let me scale this down. Go into edit mode, select the top polygon, and just use G and on the y-axis and scale it down. So that's kind of a platform where the ball will jump on. Okay, so let me leave object mode, move this in here, and that's where we start. Now the other thing, when it jumps on, just design a kind of little bit of an environment for the ball. So it will jump in here, and then maybe Shift D and on the y-axis, and G on the z-axis, going up, and maybe a little bit offset. Okay, so we are not going jumping straight, we are actually jumping zigzag. Okay, so G and x-axis, so moving that way, and this is here, and maybe Shift E and just move things around. This is a little bit of bottom, and actually I can even rotate this, but don't be that ambitious right now. Just make it happen, and there will be a last point, last platform. Okay, so that's what I will do, and that will be a little bit higher. So G, and moving on the z-axis, undo, Shift D, G, moving on the z-axis, up, yep, and actually that should be a little bit larger in size, so scale it up and maybe scale a bit, make it a little bit more flat. All right, so just to separate and tell that, okay, it's a little bit different, so now we have more room. All right, so that's it. That's basically the letter we are dealing with. And just to have a better glimpse on where we are, and to have a better sense of the whole 3D scene, I will go and select polygons at the bottom. So polygon, and click on this, and I as inset, and E as extrude, and that will be at 0. So I will set up, okay, we are going to global and select the vertices, for example, and going to the front viewport, and G, and on the z-axis, moving them up. Okay, so we will do something similar. This one's already on the ground, this one's already on the ground. We need select these, in here and go to again edit mode, pressing tab, selecting the surface, hit I, doing this, extrude, and go to front viewport and make sure it is inside. And here we are, and the same thing will happen again. So tab, selecting the center, hit I, inset, and extrude, and make it happen to the front viewport and G and Z. And that's it now. Okay, so there we are. This is the whole thing, the whole set. And of course, we can add more to it. We can add kind of a basic plane. So we're still in object mode. So Shift A and MP, and just go to edit mode and select the edge and G, and on the y-axis just to pull it out. And we can select the face and just stretch it on the x-axis, maybe on this y-axis as well. Okay, just enough, giving it enough room. Okay, so to cast shadows and other things. Okay, there we are. And of course, you can set different colors if you wish. Right now, I would just turn off the mesh, and that's it. Okay, so there we are, and now we are in pose mode, and selecting an armature piece. I'm sorry, in edit mode, selecting an armature piece, and then go to edit mode and pose mode. And of course, we want to make this thing jump with furious speed. Okay, so during the copying process, I made a duplicate of the armature. So let me select the armature and hit delete. And this is the original armature. And just to make it safe, I will rename it to ball rig. So we have that one. Okay, so that's ball rig, and we have ball mesh that's tied to ball rig. Okay, and selecting ball rig can help to the whole thing. Ball rig is there, and go to edit mode and go to pose mode, and now we can go in and make a key for this. So that's the initial thing, and at about 5 we will just move it, and auto keying is on. So let me move this to the edge, and because we are moving there, it's not slowing down. So basically, if I look at the change, so let me go there, this here, this little thing could be and should be reoriented this way. Alright, so it's slowing down, then it is going there, and there is a rotation, so of course we have to check it. Ooh, here's the rotation item. Let me go in here and press I, because it's the first time we want to key, and as you see, there's no keying happening in here, which one is great. So at the 5th keyframe, or you can use the arrow keys, but that's a different thing now, because we have a different model, handle there. So I will add a slight rotation that's going on here. So, yep, and it's going, and it rotates. Now, it's going slow, and because rotation, so here it is, rotation is happening here, we have to adjust the rotation as well to the somewhat similar acceleration. So it's going there, and it's just rotates, okay? So it's jumping, rotates. And then, from this moment, it will accumulate some energy, okay? So it will gain some energy. It will also rotate in this manner. So let me go back to the first keyframe, select the center, and hit I to have a key, and at 5 I was switching orientation, a slight orientation change. Okay, so that adds a little bit to the rotation, which one is actually, it's manageable if I see the turn. Okay, so it turns in, great. And of course we have to manage the handles, so only this single frame selected, handles are there. Alright, so the speed is not going up. And we definitely want to use the stretch part, okay, because it accumulates some energy. So it's going up to 5, fifth keyframe, and then we can use actually the loco mode. That may help a little bit. So the ball is already turned. Don't be confused with the color changes because there's a lot of things going on. So at 5, it will be there and it will jump from this moment. So it just pulls in. There's some anticipation in here and just condense. Okay, so from 0, I'm going to set a key, and at 5, it will be pushed in. Okay, so it rotates, the ball rotates, and it pushes in. And of course, we have to have this little handle change. All right, so it's going in, and it just jumps off, and that will be at frame 6. We will create the elevation. So at frame 6, this thing is already reset. So I press Alt-G, and that will reset. And select the position of the ball, and the position of the ball is changing, so it's already in the air, it's jumping out. All right, so it's just pressing and then just jumping out, and in this case it is actually adding up a little bit, stretching out. So boom, and there you go. And then it reaches a point, kind of a top position, where it flies out, and that will be for the center, or at least here. I will set Alt-G to reset, and here's the center of the thing, and that is also animated. Let me go to the left viewport and move it a little bit away, so we are high in the air. Bum. Is it the distance? Yes, it is. Okay. So we are high in the air and just stopping to the bottom. So let me get move G. Yeah, just grabbing G and moving it to this position. Great. Okay, so that is the landing position. And of course, in the landing position, we want this center. Here's the center to rotate accordingly. So let me press or go and rotate it back up slightly. And this is the contact pose again. And before the contact pose, one frame before here, we can have an even bigger rotation, and this should be stretched out. Alright, so and then bum, this is the contact pose, and the next one will be the compressed pose. Okay, so let me play this. Jumps. So this one jumps up and dumb, and it's there. Okay, it's going fairly fast. So what I will do is selecting all the elements and just stretch out a little bit of the thing. So go in and make sure 2D cursor is there, and we are set to the first keyframe and S, and on the x-axis there is a stretch. Okay, so there we are, and now let me see that. So it's going up, condensing energy, bounces up, and then it's just going back because something is happening. We have to nail that down. Okay, so something is working weird things there, and that's what's happening. We have a key generated there. That's the Z location, and only that one will be visible. And let me turn off the every other things. There we go. That's happening, and that's causing the problem. So it's going back, but it's actually not going back here. Don't forget, Z is not the height, so it's going up. It's the forward, and it's going back. So this one should be deleted, and this key actually could be a little bit lowered. Okay, so it's going up and then bouncing down. Okay, so that's what it does. going up and then bounce down, up, and there we go. And because it's speed, getting speed, it starts stretching as it lowers. Okay, so this is the moment where it's stretched out the most, and then there's impact. Okay, so let me see the impact and turn on the visibility of all these, going back on, and see the impact. And this is the contact pose, and then one frame off, and I will hit I to key the position, select these guys, and now I will hit I will go reset this and just push it even further. Okay, so this is really going into, so this is the frame before, contact, impact. This one is the arrival, so it arrives, contacts, going down, and then just will bounce back. Okay, so at the next frame it will bounce back. So I'm resetting this whole thing, Alt G for the movement. It will even stretch out a bit. The pose, the center of the pose at this frame will be already a little bit off and a little bit higher on the y-axis. Okay, so let me see what it does. It's going there. And of course the angle of rotation should be changed too. So it's coming in and it should be a little bit off there already. And yeah, that's what we do. Okay, so it's coming in and bounces. Now here, this rotation should be oriented to the ground because it's just coming in, bam, contacting, and then jumping towards the direction, and that direction is important in 3D space as well. So it's not just simply a rotation. Now I'm looking for the direction, so that's where we are, looking for the direction. This was great. Okay, looks fine. So it jumps in and it just recognizes that, okay, I have to jump somewhere else. So it's jump in, and on the next maybe 20 frame it should arrive to the other position. So let me go here and G and move it there, move it up, there we are, move it up. Okay, that looks pretty neat. Going to the front viewport, yeah, there's a contact for sure. Okay, so there we are. All right, let me play back this thing, and of course it's jumping from the top back on, and this is happening really too fast. So what I have to do is slow down the process. So Control H, because so many handlers are there. This is the contact point. So this is where the whole thing is happening, and at 20 right away it jumps over, and that one's too much. So let me just go and G and X and move it on 15. All right, so let me see that if it can jump. Okay, so just play it. And of course, yes, the travel time. Let me just reduce the amount of time. Okay, so maybe 25 is still too slow. And here, this moment at this stage, this should be a little bit higher. So let me lift this up and see what it does. Okay, so there we are traveling there. Bum, and that's it. Okay, it's an arc, but the arc is already closed there. Okay, so let me see that. All right, so there we are. Now it jumps up, and of course we have to clean up the stretches and all things. So at the very top, the rotation could be reset. So I'll press Alt R to reset the rotation, and also selecting this guy and pressing Alt G to reset that stretch. So that's where we are. Now we are not really rolling the ball, but we should. So when this whole thing is happening, it starts from there and it bounces there, but there should be some rotation. But we will go through. The first is just block out the whole thing. So it's going up, jumping, and it's stretching, and where it lands. So here's the moment where it lands. At 23, 24. Okay, so at 23, we want to stretch out the thing. So yeah, we need a stretch. It's not that big of a stretch because, you know, there's acceleration. And this stretch is not that a big amount because it's slowing down. And of course, when it's leaving, is also, if it's powerful, if there's a lot of inside energy, then it could be a big stretch because it shows that, okay, this ball has energy. But if just simply bouncing, usually the stretch is reduced over time as it bounces back on. Okay, here's the center. And of course, I have to angle the center. Double R, and try to eyeball it to the direction. So it's coming from this direction. And that's it. So it's bouncing up, stretching, and landing at 24. So this is the contact pose, selecting the root. So we have the contact pose. And at 25, we have the stretch reset, Alt G, and even push in. And we have the rotation center is also Alt R, reset. So what it does, it's just coming in and it bounces. And then at the other frame, we already will leave the party. So it will rotate slightly at 26. And it will rotate in the direction of that platform. So we are moving towards that direction. So it rotates slightly here as well. The stretch is also out a little bit. And the pose is just leaving out and moving in that direction slightly. Okay? So it's going there and it's just somewhat gaining. It's like a corner turn. Okay, it's like a corner turn. And then it's just already stretched out. I think we should have a little bit more of a rotation in here. And slide control, more of a rotation, just because the angle, the distance is there. So it's just connecting the eye. Okay, so this is where we are going. So jumping off from first. Okay, so let me just play the animation, jump off, and then it's just boom, going there. Okay, perfect. Now just jump in there. And maybe at 30, 32, 30, 33, it is landing on that area. So what I have to do is select the center and G, move it to the right pose, and number 7 to the top, and just move it perfectly in the center. Okay, go to the front. I'm sorry, Control 3 to the left, and G, Y. Okay, its own axis is the y-axis, and zooming in and see what it does. All right, there we are. So this is our contact pose. The other thing is that we have to manage the rotation to reset, or yeah, the reset. So here we are, rotation, Alt R, reset this guy, and the stretch is also Alt G to reset. So this is kind of a neutral stuff. Now, one frame before. This should follow the orientation, so let me just go back, select this area, rotate it slightly again, rotate it back, and stretch out. So this is where we are landing. Boom, and yeah, we have to reset it on the top. Okay, so we will do it. But first, this is where we are landing, stop, and then we will move forward from here. Now here in this pose, right somewhere in the middle, we have to reset this Alt G, we have to reset the center Alt R, and we have to grab this guy and lift this up because it's traveling with an arc. Now I will offset a little bit of a movement, so I'm going to the top, and this is a little bit, add some speed and just add the power, so it jumps up a little bit more, and from that height it will jump down. So because it's this platform is fairly high, and that means if he has a lot of energy, it will jump up high and then it will just land on there. Okay, I don't know if the timing is enough, but yeah, that's where we go. Okay, so let me see that. And shift space. That's it. Okay, so when we are here, we will create some kind of preparatory jumps, right? So given more anticipation, we are not just really jumping over. We will actually stop the ball. We'll make him gain some energy, and when there is more energy to it, it will jump over the other part. Okay, so that's what we'll do. Alright, so if we want to make it stop, like jumping from there and just suddenly stopping here and preparing to gain some energy and jump up, because it's quite a distance, we have to have some kind of a bounce that's closing the whole thing. So what we do basically, we'll just almost go to the edge to add not just some kind of a drama or you know, just staging the whole stuff, because it's we have to prepare for the movement and we have to prepare the audience that something will happen. Okay, so at 33, that's the landing position. So we want to jump back on slightly, maybe not on this frame, maybe at 35. So let me zoom in. 34, 35. Okay, just jump on and we'll up high and then land on this area very close to the edge. And let me see that. Okay, how it works. So we are landing and jumping up and then traveling that way. Okay, so I will just accelerate this jump a little bit more. Okay, so there's a lot of energy going on, so let me see that. Okay, the end frame should be a little bit different. Alright, so jump in there. Okay, this is happening pretty fast, and I think we don't have enough room for this jump. So what I will do, I will update this whole thing where it lands. Okay, so this is where it lands. And because we have auto key will just rewrite our frame. So I will position it to somewhere else. And now it will jump on here. And I think according to the travel, because it's an additional key in the line, I will just move this key a little bit off and see what it does. So we have some energy there. Okay, there we are. All right, let me see how it works in here. So jump. And it's pretty fast, so I will just select these keys and make the keyframe here and scale on the x-axis and just scale it out. Maybe this one just G and move slightly, and that's slowing down the whole thing. All right, so let me see that. It has to work. Okay, maybe at this position. If it's higher, how does it look? Okay, so there we are. Now at this stage, we also have a little bit of a jump and a little bit of a cushion. Okay, So at this moment, I will press Ctrl I, just to insert a key. And at 35, it will just compress in. Okay, so it's really not that big of a deal, and it's just because it is trying to stop the movement. It is already just pulling back, like pulling back the legs. And for that reason, I will not push it so hard, but one more frame, and I will push it deeper in. And this is where this should be a little bit even more out. So there's a tiny movement. So it pushes in. And then at 40, it will just lift up. Let me select this thing. And it will lift up and try to catch up and don't want to fall off. Okay, so it's jumping in and then it's just trying to hold it in position. Now to help this whole thing, it's like the guy is starting to stop and trying to stop there. What we will do is just add this frame. This is just using a key, and at 40 we'll try to make it going back. Try to hold on, and yeah, that's it. So, and it's just trying to hold on, and it will actually jump back up on this frame, and back up on this frame, and it is just not that stretchy anymore. So I will just Alt G and reset. So it's going and it's trying to going back. Okay, so this is what it does. It's trying to maintain the energy. It's going back up, flying back up, and at this pose here. What's the difference? Yeah, there's just change, and selecting the model, and it will just go back and land and press Ctrl 3 to see that if you are actually landing. And here rotation is going back again to the normal, and there is another push in. So there we are, right? So it's just jumping and trying to maintain, and then this guy comes to a rest. So at this pose, I will just reset this position, and now we have a rest. Okay, so that's where we are. Now, this is how we stopped, because that is a quite intense movement. So we had to stop the whole thing. Okay, so let me just drop myself in here and see how this thing is looking, rewarding like an action. So going back to the first frame, and let's play. Okay, we need to slow down a little bit that ending, because there's so many things happening. So select this guy, and where this is the initial stopping pose. This one is fairly slow, but this is happening pretty fast. So what I will do is I will select all the things and select all the keys regarding to this, and this is this position and S, and on the x-axis I will just stretch out and make sure there's no crazy thing is happening, and see what it does. Okay, so let me play it. All right, now at this pose, there will be a big anticipation, a big one. Okay, so the pose, the location is marked. I will hit I. The whole thing is cushioning really. It's really going in, and then it will jump already in the direction. So when we are there, this frame, we need to hold it. We need to put it on hold. So I will copy this. I will copy this and Ctrl V paste. So put it on hold. And then at 52, I want to reset this guy. So here it's still there. It's still fairly low. So I will copy this. Ctrl C and Ctrl V and maintain it. And at 52, I want to reset or even stretch it out. And this is moved up a bit. Up a bit and slightly on. And this is also moving. So at 50, it has no movement. But at 52, it has to have a good direction. Now, I think it's okay, but we have to I'm sorry, there we are. Just move it to the right position because it has to jump really high, and I'm tracking. So this should be the curve. Okay, so this should be the curve. There we are. So that's a big preparation. It's just jumping and then boom, and there we are. So what we will do is just adding more time to it, slightly, and going at maybe at 65. This should be a big jump. For sure, this will be reset. So Alt G. This will be reset. So Alt R. And the position of the figure is also changing. So I'm going to the left viewport and press G and move it right there. And of course, it's pretty boring if it's right dead center. So we have to do something else. Maybe really close to the edge, but not crazy close. Or yeah, or just touching on this edge, and then just slightly jumping forward, and maybe a roll in the end. Okay, that's it. So there we are. So this is how it jumps up, and of course the travel is pretty boring. So what we have to do at this pose, it's 59 in my case. I'm lifting this up to make sure it's just traveling in a normal way. There we are, and where we are at this stage now. This position, this stretch should be off already. Okay, so this should be go to reset. Okay, we don't need to maintain that arc, that energy there. So Alt G, reset. So it's going up, and it's just bubbling up. Yeah, it is fairly slow compared to the other parts. So let me just play this and see the whole movement. Yeah, we can actually, because we have the time for that. Let me select this guy, and we have the time for that. We can actually just lift this way higher. And this is actually the slow part. So it goes pretty well, but this is actually slow. So I will select the whole thing, grab this part and G, and moving on the x-axis just to speed up the thing. So this is falling a little bit better. All right, jump. Okay, we need to stop this guy a little bit more at this moment, because the preparation is not that, it's quite continuous movement. But what if we introduce a stop here, not just when it condenses energy, but also when it is stopping, it can help to see and feel the whole momentum. So let me play. That's it, going up. Okay, because it's just going in, and this is just happening too fast. Okay, so where we are, all the elements are selected, so we want to animate these, and it stops there. Okay. All right. Now, so this comes in here, and then stopping, and then using some energy. Okay. So at this moment, we should stop him. So all the elements are selected. These are there. This moment, what kind of keys we have? We have a couple, and I will set a key for everything and move these keys away slightly. Oops, excuse me, just make sure that only those keys are there, and X, and just move them 2 frames away, and then selecting these guys, and Shift D, and on the X-axis just create a pause. Okay, so let me see what this pause makes. Okay, we can even play with this pause. So now once we have this, we can G and X and just move it away. Let me see that. Yeah, and that's better. Okay, and the last part should be a little bit more energetic. Okay, so because this little ball character, he is actually happy. So we are just stopping now, and this could be a little bit faster. So this could happen a little bit faster. So let me just G and X and move it 1 frame at least. And on this frame, on the next frame, maybe a condense. Okay, so here this one is keyed, and moving to the bottom. And actually we can slightly rotate and play with that. So, and here this one already should have some kind of a rotation in checking the axis, and also this one is stretched out, and on the frame, on the position frame here, so let me select this guy, and yeah, at 64 in the very top, this one is set to 0, so Alt G, and then it's just moving in this direction, which one is great, but we have to start the rotation a little bit earlier, so I will add slight rotation to this thing to make sure that the stretch is happening in the right direction. Yeah, but it's landing and pausing, and then it's just bouncing back a little bit slower manner. So at 71, we are just moving this back, slightly move this forward, so not much of a change, and this one is just reset. So that's where we are. So just going down, and then it's just a slight catch. Okay, so there we are, and maybe a little bit of a bounce happening. So just bouncing forward, bouncing up. So this is the height of the position. So going up, and then it lands on here 2 frames away. Count of 3 to make sure that this is landing. There we are. We don't want to go any light through that little hatch. So that's where we are. And at this moment, maybe we want to just exaggerate the stretch a little bit more. This is just a standard thing. So let me lift this up. And right now I will just deal with this. No, not necessarily. Okay, I don't want to introduce so many more things. And here at the landing position, this one is reset, Alt G, and just there. Okay, so now that's it now. And contact pose, and yep, the ending pose, where we are, and just push it in slightly, so going there and just there, and at this pose, I think at the height we should have not much here. However, we can. Okay, slight rotation. And this one lands, starts. Okay, at this moment the rotation is reset and the figure is reset there. And pointing out. Okay, there we are. So now, looking from this angle, we can have multiple cameras, but right now it's just, you know, the basic stuff. Jump in. And that's it. It's going back and preparing and just jumping up. Okay, that's where we are. We don't have any rolling here. So this is no roll animation there, but we will make it happen to add some more the detail. Okay, so let me just inspect how the rolling is done. And of course, there's a lot of polishing could be done, but you know, it's a never-ending story. Okay, so let me start from first and select this little guy in here, this little guy, and see what it does. Okay, so where we are. Let's jump in, and is it rotating? It's rotating. At this pose, we have a key, so let me give it the key, and there, at the very top, so it rotates till this moment, and it rotates a lot. So I will just add quite a few rotations. So it's going. Alright, so the rotation is happening. It rotates, stops there. Now this rotation is, which one is the axis? Yep, it is the X rotation, the red one. And the speed should be using vector, and that could be actually linear. So, but no, vector is better because every time it contacts, Control H to show and hide the handles. Every time it contacts, it just gains energy. So, contact and then just start spinning a little bit faster, and then just moving up there. And I think I will just introduce a little bit more rotation to this whole thing, okay, just to get a bit better visual stuff. Okay, it's going up, rotating, yeah, and it bounces and bounces back, and okay, and now it rotates back because, you know, we have keys. We have keys generated automatically, so I'll just remove those keys. Yep, remove those keys. We don't need them. And going back on. So here, this is a landing point. Then we are just really going up. And where's the contact point? Yeah, here's the contact. And it rotates a lot. And it rotates a lot at this point. There we are. Okay, on this axis for sure. So it's going up, rotates, and just landing down. It's not that much of a rotation, so we still can have a few. All right, so yeah, to make sure it's really spinning in the air. So it's going up and spinning, and just landing. Okay, it's not a perfect spinning because we're not I'm not keeping the alignment perfectly, but we can refine it. Just a second. So this key is there. Sorry, the X rotation. Let me turn off the others. Sorry, X rotation. That's what we're looking for. This one is selected. Pressing V, vector. So that works. Okay. And then there will be another bounce. Quite a few. And that will be interesting because it's just a short amount of time when we're spending in the air. But we can add a lot of things. Okay, let me show that. So it's spinning really, okay, because somehow that energy is transforming into a spin. Okay, because this ball, this character tries to stop, and we are just gaining energy, and somehow we have to dissipate that. All right, so there's no such thing as just it flies off in the air. Well, there is, but we have to somehow indicate that energy loss. There we are, bounce, and boom. And then it will not go there. I will not add bounces. Maybe just emphasize the movement. Okay, so there's plenty of rotation there. Here I will add some rotation just to refine the whole movement. Okay, so let me show that. Of course, we have to set a key, right? And it's up in the air. And when it is up in the air, here, it rotates, but it rotates backwards for me. Okay, so it's a tight thing because it's, we have quite high values. So it starts and it rotates, and as it lands, I will just rotate it back slightly. Let me zoom in, turn off the handles. It's really a handy thing to be able to see that. Okay, so this is where, so it's going up, lifting up, and then it's just like it's a step for this ball. Okay, so that's where we are. Let me play this, and then we can make it work with the cameras and lights. Okay, and adding various effects. Okay, so this is what we will do. Let me go back to the first stage and play it. So here we are. Right, see what it does. Okay, that's it.